Welcome to Off the Cuff with Kel, Conversations from the Front Line, a podcast and live show for survivors and the leaders who support them. I'm your host, Kelly Humphries, a survivor of child sexual abuse, advocate, author, speaker, ambassador, a lover of all things outdoors, with over 15 years of law enforcement experience. Please support me in my mission to break cycles of abuse and trauma. You can help by donating to my Patreon account at patreon.com/Kelly Humphries. Hello guys, and welcome to Off the Cuff with Kel. I'm so excited tonight. I have my dear friend Lizzie with us. Welcome to Off the Cuff with Kel. Lizzie, thank you so much for being here. How are you going?
Oh, I'm really good, Kel. Thank you for having me. This has been a bit of time in the making, and yeah, it's awesome. We've got it together, and hopefully we can help impact some people tonight. So
it's pretty cool, Lizzie. I see you've got the board in the background there. You're giving me kind of the surfing vibe.
Yeah, it's
pretty cool.
Something I live and breathe these days, and yeah, obviously. A local made board there from the Gold Coast. Surfing's my passion. We'll probably dive into a little bit how that came about tonight. The ocean, I love it. It's total freedom for me, and a place where I connect or reconnect when I need to center myself. So.
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome. So, guys, Lizzie and I, when she says a long time in the making, I am so excited to have her because we just have this amazing. You say, well, it was her fault. I started saying so good. It's so good. We have a so good connection, and it's just been beautiful. So, Lizzie's a surfer. She's an emergency nurse. She's a amazing life coach and mentor. She's really been able to even teach me some stuff, which has been really wonderful because you know what, I know everything. So it's been a great peer support. I think is probably a good way to put it, where we just can sort of bounce off each other, but just an amazing connection. So we will be kind of sharing parts of our story and Lizzie's story particularly tonight. So there may be some stuff, as you know, guys, with Off the Cuff with Kel, some of the content may be triggering. We don't sugarcoat it. We really open up a conversation because I just do not think there's any point in sanitizing it. We really have to be real. We have to be open, and I think that's where the healing happens. So I've been waiting for this conversation, Lizzie. So I'm so glad that you're able to find some time tonight to join us. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. A pleasure, and purely coming from lived experience and knowing how important it is to share your story and to share it openly and proudly, because that can help your healing journey, and something that when I came to a place of being able to talk about what happened to me and be open about it, to realize the impact it then had on other people as well was very motivating, very encouraging, and also helped me, heal along the way as well. So yeah, it's what it's all about, and hopefully people can find and draw inspiration from that as well for everyone that does have that strength to share what's happened to them.
Well, one thing, Lizzie, I watched. There's an episode of the Lifeline podcast that I watched that you did, and I listened to the whole thing. And to be honest, like a lot of people send me stuff, and look, no offense to anybody who sent me podcasts and things. I don't normally have a lot of time to watch, and it's even like reading a book. I read the first chapter, and then I'm like, get someone else to read it and tell me what it's about. I'm shocking, but I watched every little bit of that, and it was just. You've got a beautifully inspiring story. So I would love you to share with our listeners a little bit about your story, what you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, sure.
And I know you've got heaps of strategies to share later. So
yeah,
I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Kel, and thank you for your very kind and endearing words. Yeah, I've done a number of things to share my story and put it out there, which takes a lot of courage, and you need to be vulnerable. But in sharing that, every time I do share it, there's always a feeling that you have inside yourself that you can be apprehensive about it. But I always ensure that I share in a way that could be helpful to someone else. It doesn't take away from what happened, but it's super important to, honour yourself as you share your truth as well. So for me, and it took nearly 20 years for me to open up about this, but I was sexually abused as a child for nearly 7 years. It happened within my family dynamic, and I kept that a secret, as I said, for 20 odd years. There were other incidences that happened outside the family home, the family dynamic, and it was suffering in silence for a very long time. And with that, I got to a point at 27 when I needed to break my silence and open up about what happened to me. And during those, like the years prior, there were so many things that I was struggling with in secret and through suffering in silence that it needed to come out to a point to help myself, because everything else I was trying wasn't working, and that became the catalyst for not only sharing my truth but my healing journey, but not before some really darker times as well. So.
And you, I guess, like, you kept your secret there for like 20 years. It does take, I think, the average person to like 27. I think I'm probably going to get this right. It's like 24 or 27. See, I have short-term memory loss, right? 27 years to speak up. So what was that like for you when you were able to finally break that silence?
It was very difficult, but at the time I knew I needed to break my silence. I got to a point where everything that I was trying wasn't working, and I got to a really dark place in my life, and that was a moment where I could have, chosen one way or the other. And this particular day, I was alone in my apartment, and I remember waking up that day having this overwhelming feeling that I needed to finally break my silence. And I kept trying to put it off, like, no, don't open up about it. Why now? Like, after all these years, no one will believe you anyway, And my family dynamic was already so unsettled and had so much emotional elements to it that were very negative and narcissistic in ways that I didn't feel opening up would make anything better anyway. And so I got to this point where I was contemplating ending my life, and I thought that was the only way. Instead of breaking my silence, it was just, this is all too hard. I've burdened. I feel like I would burden, so many more people by, coming to the truth of this. And then in this moment of wanting to end it all, and it wasn't the first time that I'd got to that point, but it was this particular day was, such a dark time for me that. In this little moment, this voice in my head said, "You matter. Now show yourself this every day and your life will get better." And in this moment of irrationality to then having this peace of like, you matter, I was like, well, maybe I can do that. Like, maybe I can show myself that I matter, and I can, make something of my life. Because really, I knew I had more to do and be and give and all of that, but I was just in this world of darkness and this pain and suffering that I'd carried for 20 odd years, And in that moment, I made a phone call to Lifeline, and I reached out to them, and I was counselled on the phone to reach out to other family members, to extended family members that I didn't know that well, and to break my silence. And that night I went to my auntie and uncles, and I told them everything. And it was the first time I opened up about what had happened. And it was like a huge weight had lifted off my shoulders, and to be welcomed with open arms and open hearts was extremely important for me, because at the time I'd been disowned by my own family. So another point of it is that I had opened up to them as well, and my entire family disowned me for speaking the truth of being sexually abused. So it was a very turbulent time. It had a lot of darkness, but at the same time, I knew what I needed to do to help myself to not get in a position of, not wanting to be here and having to continue pain and suffering in my life, because it only serves its purpose for so long. And once you break that silence, it really does set you free. It doesn't mean that you're completely healed just by doing it, but it does catalyze your journey for healing. And so from those moments, I was able to start to turn my life around day by day by showing myself that I matter, and really starting to believe in that, and do things that were reinforcing that, and come out of that darkness and come back to finding out who I really am and why I'm here. So it's been a journey, but one that I have no regrets over, and I'm just extremely grateful to be here and to be able to share parts of my story, hopefully to help others.
Thanks, Lizzie. That's awesome. And thank you for sharing. I know it doesn't matter, even, myself on here, it doesn't matter how many times you share it. I don't think it really gets easier. You just have more power over it. So I appreciate the courage that took to share. I just would love you to, that one sentence, if you could just say that again. I just think it's so powerful.
What I just said.
Yeah.
You see, things just, you matter. Yeah. And so you matter first and foremost, then others. And when you start to believe that you matter, so you is to be important to yourself and significant to yourself, and that when you show yourself that every day, you do small steps to show yourself I matter, right? And you start doing that more and more with everything you do. It might be the way you think, it might be the way you feel, it might be what you do, but what you're doing is reinforcing a belief that I matter. And most people would know in this group, you don't feel like you matter. You don't feel like you're enough. You don't feel like you're loved. You don't feel like you belong, and so on. And these are all powerful beliefs and if we live in these limiting beliefs, we keep holding ourselves stuck as a victim in what we've experienced, but it doesn't help us heal. It blocks our healing. So it's really important that whatever resonates with you, choose that. And if you focus on that and start to shift your perspective on that, then you start to change the belief that you have about yourself, and it does profound things to yourself in your life, because you're retraining your subconscious mind.
100%. And I guess that's where when we first started talking about coming on and doing this, we came up with the whole label about the trauma of labels, and the words that we speak over us, or that have been spoken over us, or and I know you've got some views when it comes to like medicine and your career and expertise in nursing and things like that. But I know myself, and I think for many of our listeners too, I don't think that we always draw the conclusion or the nexus between the beliefs that we have now and how they've come from our perpetrators, and it's grooming, and it's manipulation, and it's silencing, but we don't realize we hold on to those things because we're adults. We think, oh, we should know better than that.
But no, it's not, because they were created when we were children for the most part. If you've had negative past experiences, they get locked in your subconscious mind. So you can't just recall them like we're chatting now, Kel. You need to go into your subconscious mind either through meditation or hypnosis. And when you're able to see what those layers are and identify your beliefs and your feelings and the events and everything associated with that, then you can put the pieces of the map together. And so as an adult, you can continue to ridicule and belittle yourself because you think, I should know this. Why do I keep sabotaging with these behaviors or this thought process and so on? But the thing is, and they don't teach you this. I had to come to learn this on my journey. I didn't learn it through Western medicine. But when you finally understand how this all works and why you've protected yourself and kept yourself safe because of the trauma that you've experienced as a child, and you still can play out those same attributes as an adult, that's what's kept you safe. But there comes a point where it also prohibits you from healing, because that old sort of paradigm, it just wears thin. And so you can't just consciously go, oh, it's this and that. It doesn't, the subconscious mind doesn't work that way. It needs to be sifted through with the layers and drawn out through, as I said, deep meditation or hypnosis.
Yeah, I think, and I guess because I've been digging in and recording my courses and things like that, it's a lot of, going back and reframing that original or that belief that you have. It's kind of like when you have a conversation with someone, like you and I could be talking, and there's like the voice that you hear, but then there's the voice that you kind of can hear at the back of your head, and that's the voice you need to be listening to, because it's the one that's telling you the truth. We often get so loud out there and chaotic that we don't actually listen to it. We shut it down.
Yeah,
that's small voice. We shut it down because we're like, no, I know better than that, right?
Yeah, that's right. And that first impulse is your intuition. That first impulse is the truth. And then what you say after that or do after that is the narrative. It's coming from the egoic mind. So you start to try and talk yourself out of something, or sabotage yourself, or belittle yourself. That's not the truth, and that's where it's stripping those layers back to realize they serve their purpose from what's happened in your past, but they're not doing you a service, as an adult. That they do keep you stuck and victimized by what's happened. So starting to change those layers and understanding what they mean is integral to being able to overcome whatever it is that you've been through.
So when you said, so you got to that point where you had that thought in your head, you matter. So how was the journey after that? Like you've obviously learned how to do these things, but how did you get from that decision and like, that's it, my life is over, I'm done, to then climbing your way back to this like warrior sun surfy chick who like rides the wave like some sea goddess? Like how did you get to sea goddess?
Thanks, Kel.
I don't want to do this. Like,
so it, obviously it was step by step, and for me it was, I went on the search of finding out who I really am. And so what I needed to do was strip back the layers of who I wasn't. And when I show people photos of me, from that time, they say you're unrecognizable. I was 20 kilos heavier. I had short hair. I dressed and looked older than what I was, because my whole demeanor, there's nothing wrong with short hair, but I had this mask on. And this mask was, I was a professional nurse. I was climbing up the corporate ladder in nursing. I was mature for my years and, all these things. But I was just battling this, this inner conflict, because I knew my truth and I knew who I really wanted to be, but I wasn't matching up the thoughts, beliefs, and feelings, to my physical presence. So what I did was I started to go within and question everything about my life, my past experiences, face everything that had happened. Lots of journal writing. I started practicing mindfulness. So I just self-taught, would go down the beach and just, watch the world go by and start to, notice the colors and the landscapes and seascapes. And every time my mind would wander off, I'd be like, come back to the present. And that would make me feel good. I'd go from feeling anxious, to then being calm, or looking back at my past, feeling depressed, and then coming back and being calm again. So started to train my mind with these practices, going, well, this is working. I'm feeling better than, the things that I was doing prior. So even though it was an up and down journey of facing my emotions and feelings and the experiences, and challenging myself. I had a lot of addictions back then. So I was binge eating in secret. I was binge drinking as well. Self-loathing was massive for me. I could barely look in the mirror and like who I saw. So, the inward journey was coming to grips with all of that and working through the self-hatred, working through the sabotage, understanding what is it to be anxious, depressed, overwhelmed, and confused. And once I started realizing this was all happening inside my mind, and then my body was following through behavior or actions, I wasn't matching up. I wasn't in alignment. So as I started to face my stuff, it got easier and easier to challenge. So when I'd feel the urge to binge eat, I'd be like, what's going on here? What's this trigger about? And rather than just go and eat, and, I'm talking, I would eat, a large pizza, a tub of ice cream, and a packet of Tim Tams. I wasn't just having a bit here and there. And, you imagine the guilt and shame you would feel afterwards. So it was about challenging those uncomfortable emotions, because that's what was wanting to be confronted. And every time I started to do that, I took my power back. And when I did that, the feeling of wanting to binge dissipated. And then I was like, oh, that's good. Like, do more of this. So the more that I went in, the more that I faced everything and started to work it all out and reprogram my mind when I knew and understood through mindfulness, through meditation, through journaling, and facing all the stuff that we try and suppress, it got easier and easier. And then my whole body started to change naturally too, because it was like, well, I'm starting to become in alignment. So I became healthier and fitter and stronger and happier because I was shedding the layers that were holding me back from being my true self. I was shedding all the layers of the trauma and the experiences that went with that, and all of the negative emotions that, I carried for way too long. And I found myself to a place of forgiveness for the perpetrators and other people that I'd felt hurt by. And once I'd sort of finally come to that point at 31, I was feeling completely free and happy and aligned. And not long after, I started my business, You Matter Life Mentoring, to get out there and help other people. So it was a beautiful evolution of not only my own personal journey, but to find my purpose to help others, and people that I now help go off and do the same as well. So it's quite a nice flow-on effect that when you put in the work for yourself, it's not only for you, but you have the potential to go out and help others to do the same.
It's just so beautiful to listen to you talk about it. It's just such a wonderful, like, I don't know, people can share their stories sometimes, and it's harsh. Like, I don't know, you just said it like poetry. Beautiful.
Thank you, Kel.
Just lovely evolution, and you've got to be congratulated for putting in the work. Like,
Thank you.
Like, I know you today, and I just love all the things about you. I just think you're amazing. But you glow, and I love having conversations with you, because if I'm feeling like shit, I'm like, "Oi, Lizzie."
I just sprinkle my love, sprinkle my, my goodness, because when you get to that place that you're in alignment, it just flows through you, and it's just a beautiful feeling. And everyone has the opportunity to do this, and this is why healing is so powerful. And those that have been affected so greatly by trauma, I know what it's like to be in it and so stuck in it, and it's all consuming and it's dark. But if I could share one thing right now of someone who's at the beginning phase of what they're experiencing, it would be that you have been gifted a great purpose because of what you've experienced. And if you're able to move through and learn how to overcome what you've been through, you are going to be so impactful and so influential to other people in this world in the most meaningful way. And you will look back and be grateful, not in the aspect of asking for trauma to happen, but you'll be grateful for who you've become because of it. And when you rise into that, and when you strengthen into that, and you become courageous, you're unstoppable. No one will be able to get you anymore. And that is the ultimate, pillar of strength and truth for what we've all had to endure. No one wishes it upon anyone, but if you can rise above and then live an amazing life because of what's happened, that's got to be one of the strongest things you can take from it.
Again, so beautiful, Lizzie. It's so powerful, and you're so right. Like, if I could just share like one little small thing. So today I was coming back from the grocery shop, and now there's not much that really triggers me anymore. Like, it's a bit different with the police PTSD stuff. That's very new to me. But in terms of my childhood stuff, like, there's only two things. One is White Ox rollies, right? That's a stench you just cannot like. It's so pungent and significant, right? So that's very triggering for me. I haven't smelled it in a long time. And a Nissan Pintara green fucking old wagon, right? That's the car my uncle used to have. Now today, on the way back from the shop, a green Nissan Pintara wagon went past me on the other side, and for a moment my heart just stopped, and I was like, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, what the fuck are you doing? How come you're here? Like, it just a split second in my head, and I was like, hang on a minute, fucking hell, come on, Humphries. Like, you're way above that. He has no power over you. He has no control over you. And I just was like, it's not his. I know it's not his car. It's irrational to think that it was his car. But the first time I've seen one in 25 years, and I was like,
wow,
holy shit. But I realized in that moment how much I've grown, because I don't know, there's not too many things that do trigger me anymore. But I was just like, okay, I'm good.
And that's it. That's, every time you get a test like that, it's recognition of how far you've come and how much you've healed. And, a lot of people will, resonate in the fact that they think, I haven't done enough and I haven't healed enough and I'll never get over this. But the universe, I'm a big believer in the universe, but it will test you in ways where you will know, actually, I am doing well and I am doing better and I am growing stronger, because it only delivers you the test you're ready for. And when you're able to proceed through that, you go to the next level and the next level. And healing doesn't just happen overnight. It is a step-by-step process, and it is showing up each day and doing the little things. And not every day is going to be an up day. It's going to have, the peaks and flows with it. But it's the whole purpose is don't give up on yourself, and seek support. There's plenty of other people that are willing to guide you along the way and support you, or have had their own experiences, especially those that have had similar experiences. It's very relatable to be able to connect and know that you're not on your own with what you're going through. And the more that you share what's happened but move forward in, I call it there's the victim, survive, thrive cycle. And a lot of us stay in victimhood and we stay stuck for quite a long period of time, let's say 20 to 30 years in our life. And it serves its purpose. We sit in it, in this beingness, and we do it for such a period of time that we get to a point where we go, right, I'm bloody sick of this. I'm over it. And which way am I going to go next? So you either stay stuck as a victim, or you move into, so you change the energy and move into surviving. And the surviving part becomes the healing part. So as you start to learn all the tools of the trade in your healing, once you've completed that, then you go into thriving. That's when you live your life's purpose. That's when you give back. You feel compelled to, because it comes through you in a way that you've done the full cycle of, going from a victim, then moving into surviving it, and then thriving in it. And once, you do that, you can't go backwards. And that's why every day is so important to do the little steps, and they build up to big steps. And then the foundation creates this new version of yourself. And the triggers, they still may be there, but they are so minuscule in their impact as you move from being a victim of something to surviving to then thriving, because you've taken your power back. It can't happen to what, happened in the past for you or for anyone that's been affected by any negative past experience. That's essentially what happens, is our power's been taken away. We've lost our voice. We haven't had a choice, and we've done the best thing we can to cope through those experiences, to keep ourselves safe, to be protected. But as adults now, if we're living a life where we're feeling like we're not aligned, where we're just stuck in this victimhood mentality, it's hard to know which way to go with it. But that's where, as soon as you take that next step each day, just do something a little bit different than you did the day before, you're already on your way. And then seek that support with others who might be a little way along the road, who can give back.
Love it. I love it. I keep thinking, and I go back to the point, and I know so many survivors get to that point where it's a bit yuck and a bit horrible, and so then they sabotage, right? Like we kind of been talking about it. And then it goes, you put yourself back into that victim cycle because you're just not really sure like how to push through that uncomfortable kind of part, right? So it's going to be awful. You're going to have to do something like talk about it. I'm going to have to talk about the thing. I don't want to do it. So to me, that trigger, I keep saying, fall in love with your triggers, because that when your body reveals, it's time to heal, right?
100%.
Yep.
Yeah, you got to feel it to heal it. Yep.
Yep. So what would you kind of say to people when they get to that trigger point?
Yeah. So when you get to the trigger point, it's important to acknowledge it first and foremost. So acknowledge the trigger. Okay, I've been triggered. And in that moment, just take a few more seconds than you normally would, because what happens when we get triggered, we go into a state of reactivity. So that can be, I'm reaching for the food, I'm reaching for the drink, I'm, reaching for the online shopping, the gambling, smoking, whatever it might be. So give yourself a few more seconds than you normally would. And then what that gives you is an opportunity to make a choice. So you can either react or respond to what you're about to do. When you give yourself a few more seconds, there's two key things that can help de-escalate a trigger. And that is rhythm and nurture. So rhythm is get up and move, right? So if you're in your place, move around the house or walk outside and just move the energy, move the emotion that's stirred up inside of you, right? And the other thing is nurture. So you need to show yourself some sort of self-love or kindness, right? And if you don't have the ability to do that, but you've got someone near you, go and have a hug, call a friend, connect with someone, do something to feel connected again and give back. So nurture and rhythm are really key to de-triggering what's going on. And the more you practice this, the more you will feel confident that every time you get triggered, there's more you can do to help yourself, instead of the reaction that happens so quickly, because you don't even think. Because what happens is, when you're in reactivity, part of your brain shuts down. So you're in fight or flight response. So you're not using the most intelligent part of your brain, because you're in a fear state. You go back to what happened. It will feel like it's happened yesterday. And that is the body's ability, that's the brain's ability to survive and to cope through what's going on. So take that time, take a few more seconds to stop and pause and respond to the situation. Go, am I safe? Am I protected right now? What can I do to nurture myself or receive that from someone else? And what can I do to create rhythm? Just like a baby, you'd hold a baby when they're crying and you rock them. So that's rhythm, right? And nurture, you're okay. You offer them kindness and compassion, and they stop crying. They self-soothe. So for adults, we need to self-regulate. So they're just two key things you can do to help if you become triggered. There's a whole lot more, but I won't list them all tonight, because we don't want to overwhelm either.
No, it's really good. It's actually a really good way to put things, because we often don't know how to look after ourselves. And I know for myself, like for the longest time, and still, I've got my lovely office assistant, executive assistant, Shelley. She just introduced herself on my page, but she's always getting at me for my self-talk, and it's catching yourself out, because for the longest time I've like beating the crap out of myself, like, oh, come on, Humphries, you can do better than that, And we don't realize it, and sometimes it takes having tribe and good people around you to say, now listen, that's not how we talk to ourselves.
And it's language, it's so important. And I needed to do the same many years ago, because I would know my internal dialogue, and I would know what I would be saying when I look at the mirror, or I'm going out to get ready for somewhere, and just dreading the fact I had to go out in public and be seen, because I didn't like who I was. And when I started really noticing my language, I was like, God, you're horrible to yourself. Like, I barely say anything that's negative, and if I catch myself, I'm like, oh, where did that come from? And I just recorrect, because and you'll notice it profoundly in other people when you've done a lot of your own self-discovery and understanding of yourself, and you start seeing the way people talk about themselves. You're like, that's terrible, why would they? And you think, that was me a few years ago, or many years ago. And it's a powerful thing. If you're not aware of it, it can wreak havoc in your life. And we have the ability to change.
It's interesting. Like I think Aussies are really bad. Like, we like to take the piss. Like, we just think it's fun, right? We're like, oh, fuck, man, you'll be right. Just take some, concrete and hard nut.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, mate, she'll be right. She's all right. Like, we're so blasé when it comes to like acknowledging real trauma. Like, and I think there's something to be said about that. Like, I mean, I don't know what culture does nurture trauma. I think we're all pretty bad at it. But I just think Australians are really rough. Like,
and that aspect of it will add to the stigma of not speaking up, and whether it's men or women. And this culture has a massive impact on anyone in particular, of being able to open up about negative past experiences, especially trauma, because you look, it's so still in this day and age, people struggle to speak about it, or you will, like, even when I talk about it, sometimes my voice will lower, and I think, what am I lowering my voice for? This is an issue. It's nearly 1 in 4 under 18 years of age in Australia of people that do report childhood sexual abuse. Like, the stats are massive. And my career as a nurse, 20 odd years working in the profession, and knowing the ins and outs of people's stories there, and it's everywhere, it's rife. And if we're still suffering in silence, that's why we have suicide rates at the state that they are, and why we have so many people that are addicted and suffering, and mental health is continually on the rise, because we're not speaking up. People are still suffering in silence and feeling that stigma attached to it.
I think I've got this thing in my head. I just have to say it. Like, it's funny because I think I was at an event just recently, right? And I ended up getting the microphone for a few minutes and talking about what I do. And I had many people came and disclosed to me afterwards and just generally talked to me about what I was doing. But it's just like, oh, I've got this friend and they were, they were, abused. They're abused. Like, it's like they can't say it, right? It's like the word, like the thing. It's like, oh, like they got, it's like they're just not even acknowledging it is so silencing. It's not funny. Like, it's just like what you can't even say the word to somebody who's been through it. Like, I feel like that's so offensive, but we do it all the time, oh, it's not proper to say things. We don't want to, and so there's this whole big, like, I've never talked about that, but actually it just came into my head. I'm just thinking, how inappropriate is it? Do you know what I mean?
And that's it. We talk about, sadly, so-and-so's got cancer or they've got heart disease, but we can't talk about childhood trauma and the effects of that as an adult, without it being, these labels and stigma attached to it. And for those that have been affected by it, we were children. We didn't ask for it to happen. We didn't have a choice, and we've done the best we can to survive through it. And we have just as much right to be able to share openly and truthfully to people and be believed than to live a life of suffering and silence and pain, because essentially it's a lot of pain. Everyone would know what that feels like emotionally, physically, and the manifestations because of it. But there is a way through it. You can overcome it. You can heal from it. You can thrive. And, not just myself, but I know many other people who have done the same. And it's, that's the focus we need to move towards instead of being stuck and part of a system. Unfortunately, Western medicine doesn't serve people in this way like it could. It has its place, but having worked in it for so long and seen the way mental health is managed within the hospital setting, unfortunately, the labels that are attached to that and the medications and the diagnoses, they keep people stuck. And I found it hard pressed towards the end of my nursing to be in that and know that there was another way, but I couldn't go beyond my scope of practice either. So naturally, my mentoring, took its place and its way to be able to do it freely.
Yeah, and I think it's really difficult because I know many health professionals have to put labels on things in order to, look, anyone has to put a label on something in order to make it understood, right? We like to label things ADHD when, it's just trauma. It's what happens when you've experienced trauma. It mimics ADHD. That's what PTSD is. So we like to put labels on things in order to understand them. And I think a lot of times, particularly around child sexual abuse, like, people will have an assumption because of your experience about how you're going to be, right? Like, oh, she's been through child sexual abuse. Oh, she's really fragile, or like they're just making an assumption based on your experience that maybe you're not strong, or maybe you're really strong, or whatever it might be. Instead of just asking or just having a conversation, they just form an opinion or a belief based on what they think they know about something, which is sometimes nothing.
And part of it, from my experience as well, working within the industry, I was working in emergency for the last 12 years. So, it was helping people with suffering from mental health issues, and knowing their story. We'd always get a lot of information around their backstory, and I would see the list of diagnoses that they've been given, but I would know the core of their story. And at the end of the day, they wanted to be, listened to, they wanted to be heard, and they wanted to feel safe enough to be able to open up about their emotions. But that was never talked about. It was like, you're anxious, you're depressed, you've got PTSD, you've got BPD, a borderline personality disorder, and then all these extra additional diagnoses that never used to be around, mind you, many years ago. And then here's all your medications and see you later. And they'd come back the next week or 2 weeks or a month and round the cycle and be so frustrated because it was never getting to the root cause of what they were going through. And the system kept them stuck. But all they were seeking was help. That's the only avenue they knew. And, that frustrated me, but I could do my bit as a health professional to be able to, if I happened to be their nurse while on duty, then I would share a little bit more just to be able to help them on their way so that they can empower themselves rather than be stuck in the system. and do what I could. But it's a system that, as I said, it serves its purpose in some ways, but when it comes to trauma, you'll find it very hard pressed to have a doctor, psychiatrist, or psychologist to tell you that you can heal from your trauma. And I personally found that during my own healing journey. But then the amount of times I've heard that as a professional, as a health professional, like, it astounds me. And I think, well, no wonder we have a society that's filled with people that are stuck in victimhood, because they don't know any other way. So it takes other people that go outside that realm and say, hey, this is what I learned, and these are the things that I can share if it aligns with you, or go and seek someone that is doing something that you resonate with. And if it's not that, search yourself. We've got that much access to information now. YouTube, you've got all the social media platforms and whatnot. Just read books, podcasts, audio books, and just start to self-educate yourself. And the next step will be shown to you on that journey. And the more that you do that, the more empowered you become, then stuck in this cycle and in a culture that doesn't really want to help people heal.
And I think it's interesting that so many of us are stuck and look, I've got 100 things in my head at the moment. You know how my brain works. But a lot of times it is just actually having that conversation where you feel safe, that your trauma is truly acknowledged, instead of band-aiding broken bones, because we know you can't stick a band-aid on a broken bone, right?
Definitely not. I've seen it.
Well, it's like you're taking that medication, or you're sticking a sterilized bandage over the top of a really deep cut, like without doing the treatment to treat the cut, right? Like you've got to do more than that. You've got to do more than that. And so, it doesn't really help to, dismiss or ignore those things, because then obviously they're just going to keep coming back for the same treatment, right?
That's right. And that's what trauma does as well, is that you try and block, suppress, and resist it, and it gets louder and louder. And the whole point of that is to, allow you the opportunity to start going deeper within your own journey of healing. And essentially, we're all capable of doing it. It's just a matter of getting to that point where you have your breaking point. It might be that you get to rock bottom. It might be that you're just sick and tired of doing the same thing over and over again. And therefore, you decide to choose a different path. And if that's one thing that I learned was, quite simply, I started doing the complete opposite of what I was doing all those years of self-sabotage and self-hatred and going through the same cycles. I started to do the complete opposite, and then life started to open up a whole lot more. So if that's one key thing that someone could take from this right now, is whatever you're doing right now, start doing the complete opposite and watch everything shift.
It's interesting. I've just so many people have reached out to me because they just can't find the right help, right? But they're also, I think, many people are really scared to try new things. They want to go to someone who's trusted and safe and whatever, and usually that's a doctor, right? But I just feel like there's a journey to be had in pursuing all these alternative ideas of what healing looks like. And for me, like, I'm still, as you know, I'm not very good at sitting still, Lizzie. So meditation, is not great for me. I find it very difficult, but I found other ways, fishing, and I do, meditate in a way, to ground myself and those things. And it does help, because it's one thing to have an intellectual understanding of trauma, and another thing to be able to join, like, your somatic body, like what you're feeling and what you're that's going on inside of you, with what you intellectually know, because those two things need to come together at some point in order for you to get that healing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it. It's doing, there's so many different aspects out there that people can try, and it's a matter of just taking the next step. Start to do what aligns with you. Not everything's going to work. That's where you can absorb yourself with so much information and knowledge, and just take the one thing out of the 100 things that you've just witnessed and go, that connected, the rest didn't. That's fine. And you start to create your own healing journey. There is no right or wrong way of doing it. It's just that you actually show up for yourself, start committing to your journey of healing, and being kind and gentle with yourself along the way. because you've come this far, you've been through so much, and there's no point in doing what you've already done, because it's got you to the point it has. But if you want to progress in a more positive and stronger way, it's about just taking those small steps and not being too hard, and starting to align with what resonates. And that will just naturally happen more and more as you get into that mindset of I'm going to heal from this, or I'm going to overcome this, rather than I'm a victim of this.
Yeah. And I think one thing that just popped into my mind too, for everyone who's listening, is don't give up at the first sign that it's not going to work, because it takes 21 days to form a habit and it takes 1 day to break it. So you can be very easily, because when we're hyper vigilant, it's very hard for us to stay committed and focused on one thing, but just be consistent with something for a period of time until you can truly figure out whether it's for you or not.
Yeah. If you
but
that's right. And if you put your head on the pillow at night and go, did I do one good thing today for myself? Right. And there might have been 99 that you go, I don't know. Focus on the one good thing and be like, that was a start. And then the next day it might be 2 good things. It's not going to be, a trajectory of straight up. That's not how it works when you're healing. It's just the little steps you can take each day. Change your beliefs. I matter. I'm enough. I am worthy. I am loved. Pick one. And even if that's the only thing you do for the next week or month, that's more powerful than if you just keep doing what you've already done and stay stuck in that victim mode and keep, harming yourself in these ways through the pain and the suffering and the thoughts and the experiences.
I think one thing too that's really important is that I put this up sometimes, is like, you've already survived the hardest part, and that's the thing, right? You've done the thing, you've been through the thing. The thing, the trauma, the abuse, you've already conquered the hardest part of this journey, right?
Yeah.
So anything else, you can do it, right? You can 100% do it. You can achieve it. You can conquer it. You can overcome it, because you've already survived the hardest part.
Yeah. And the strength it takes to do that, and to go all those years either suffering in silence. Like, if you only tap into 1% of that, you are on your way. It's just recognizing that is the power that's in you. But if you keep thinking about what happened and you go back to your victimhood, you give that person or those people your power. You give it away to them. And that's where you make that one shift and go, I am so strong to have survived what I've been through. I'm going to use that just at 1% and move forward in that direction.
Yeah, one little step at a time. And I guess part of the reason I'm talking about that is one of our questions, Lizzie, is about what we think about counselling that doesn't talk about the trauma. And I think what's really important is having that persistence to find the right people, right? And
absolutely,
a lot of therapists are not, sometimes, like, they're very well intended, but if they don't have their own experience of, sometimes they're a little bit hit and miss, right? So you really have to find, it's like finding a good shampoo, or like, you've got to find something that works for you, that's targeted and tailored and specific, and addresses your needs, that you feel comfortable with. Like, that you won't know unless you go, or you can find a recommendation from somebody.
That's right. And to use it, there's lots of counselors and psychologists out there and so on. Use, like everything, give it a go a few times, get some key foundational tools or skills or resources, and then it's also up to you. They're not going to do your inner work. They'll lead you to a few different things, but at the end of the day, it's what you need to be able to do for yourself as well. That will create the biggest change. So whilst, it might be finding someone you align with, it's also realizing that seeing a counsellor for the next 10 years isn't going to solve your problems or have you heal better. It's what you're doing for yourself. Like, that's the most powerful part in healing, is that when you start showing up for yourself and understanding who you are, and you're not afraid of that anymore, you can do so much more than what anyone else can ever do for you. And it's what I say to people, is that you're the best person to help yourself, but it's to do it with some guidance and support. It's to do it with someone who's perhaps, been through something similar, that can say, hey, these are the lessons I learned. These are the things that might help you along your path. But if they're not, then you create the things that do work. So it's not bottling yourself into just one aspect of, psychology or counseling or other modalities. It's just build these foundations for yourself.
Yeah. And I think it's really important too, like, and it's, as I said, like, you just can't, we are so good at sabotaging that, when we get to the tough part, we'll be like, oh, look, this isn't going to work for me. Sorry. Checking out. I'm not going to do this. So I tried. I really tried. But what we're actually doing is we're self-sabotaging because we're not willing to do that bit that you're talking about, Lizzie, and just like going through it and taking that next step, even if it's just that, little 1% forward.
Yeah.
And it can take a long time, or you can take great leaps and bounds, but a counselor, a really good counselor, a really good psychologist or life coach is going to get you to extract it out of you, so you say it for yourself, right? They're going to help you find the answers within yourself, and that's what you really want, so that you can look at it and go, oh, okay, all right, so this is what's happened.
Yeah.
And you have that light bulb moment and you go, oh my God. But you have to be willing to get through that kind of yucky part and allow the other person permission to help you do that, right? Like, because we're likely to shut down. We could easily disassociate. We might be triggered. There's lots of things. So you've got to be patient with yourself. Like Lizzie's saying, be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself, because you're going to notice things. And when you start to notice things, then you can go, oh shit, I just did the thing.
Yeah.
I just did that thing. And you're like, I don't do that thing. Right?
And this is the thing. You can, as you're still learning, through your healing journey, you can still do the thing. You can still get sabotaged or have self-sabotage. But it's knowing that once you bring the awareness to it, you go, oh, I'm doing the thing again, right? So even recognizing that through awareness, then you might go, oh, shit, I ate, all that food, and oh, God, I feel terrible now. At least you have awareness now, whereas before you didn't. You go, I don't know why I do it. I just got really anxious and all of a sudden I ate and now I hate myself, right? So even that is a progression in learning of your self-healing. And the more that you're able to face what you're doing and how you're feeling, it loses its energy. It loses its hold over you. So that's why when you talk to people about how you're feeling or what you're doing or what happened, the energy changes because it's not blocked inside of you anymore, and you start to release it. And as you get more and more comfortable with, I'm feeling this emotion and I'm feeling, these things, or I'm getting these images, it starts to dissipate and leave, your whole being, because that's why it comes up to be healed, but we're really good at just push, block, suppress, resist, all of that. But it gets to a point, as I said, it stops working because you want to live life and you want to be free of the constraints of what's happened in your past. And that's where the self-empowerment comes from, is that once you start to open up, once you start to write it out, once you start to go in your mind and join all the dots together, the energy changes. So it's not as scary as what it once was. Because when you're in that fight or flight response, you're still living as you were when you were 7 or 8 or 10 or 12, right? And so that's what we revert back to. And when you can have that understanding as an adult, of course you're going to be kind and gentle, because you go, poor thing, like, why would I treat, that inner child in such a horrible way? I'd never do it to my own child or children, and so on. So have that recognition that that's what's going on in the mind and the body when you're triggered, or when you're self-sabotaging, or when you're engaging on your healing journey.
Or when you start talking shit to yourself and start swearing at yourself and calling yourself stupid names.
Yeah.
Yourself, and be open to other people, like my little Shelley Bell, telling me that I should not be talking shit to myself.
Exactly.
You have to be able to allow people in your life to speak into your life, because often, particularly as survivors, we're very independent, because like, oh, what can you tell us? We've already survived this. We're good. We don't need your help. And we just don't let anyone in because we think we don't need it. But
or we don't trust them either. That's another aspect, and that's where, when you learn to trust yourself, which is all part of the journey too, you'll hold strong on that, and no one can take that away from you. It's only going to grow as time goes on, and that's going within. That inward journey for me was the most powerful foundation in my healing. Whilst I had help from other people and support around me, facing who I was and what happened to me was extremely, impactful.
Yeah, I love it. I think there's so much like we could unpack from our conversation. Like you're just so eloquent. So you're gonna have to come back at some point. And
Yeah, well, I feel like have we got questions to answer here, or
we've already answered most of our questions.
Excellent.
So yeah, but if anyone else has any questions, chuck them in the feed and we will answer. We've just got a couple of minutes left. But guys, yeah, I just wanted to tell us about surfing real quick, because I just
yeah.
think there couldn't be anything more scary than like being out in the ocean with the sharks. And like, it freaks me out.
Nah, it's for me, fear-based mindset. You know, when I go out surfing, it is the greatest freedom that I can feel. And when I was in that very dark time in my life at 27, and I was struggling with my everyday life, and I started to think about getting back in the ocean. I hadn't surfed for 13 or 14 years. I grew up with surf lifesaving, so I learned then, and grew up with a street full of boys and brothers and whatnot. So that was natural for me. Anyhow, I had entered a competition. I bought some sunscreen and a banana boat at the time, and they said, "Oh, do you want to go into a competition to win a surfboard?" I was like, "Yeah, for sure, why not?" And a week later, they rang me and said, "You want a surfboard?" And I was like, "What?" So then it sat in my apartment for 6 months because I didn't want to put a wetsuit on, because I felt I was 20 kilos heavier and very body conscious. So I was like, no way, I'm not putting a wetsuit on. Like, anyway, one day I said, stuff it, I'm doing it, because I didn't know what else to do, and I just was feeling pretty shit, and put the wetsuit on, squeezed that on, and took the board out. And when I got that first wave, the freedom I felt, and it took me back to being, you know, a 7-year-old who was surfing at the time, and that joy and exhilaration. And I thought, this is it. I'm never going to not surf anymore. This is my ultimate freedom and my happiness. And the ocean has taught me so much as far as about myself and healing. And it's a meditation in itself, just being out there, and the life lessons you learn. You know, you go surfing, you have to paddle out the back and duck dive under waves, and you know, you've got this force against you, but it's like, well, do you want the thrill? Do you want the exhilaration? You got to push through even when it gets tough. So yeah, I absolutely love it. People know me as the surfer chick, you know, everywhere I go now. It's a part of me now, rather than just what I do. So I've got a lot of gratitude for surfing, because it really did, you know, save my life at a time when, yeah, as people know from tonight's sharing, there was a time where I didn't want to be here. So yeah, life by the ocean, love it.
Surf's up, girlfriend.
Yeah, you.
I love it. All right, guys. Well, we might leave it there, but Lizzie, thank you so much for sharing of your courage tonight. Just beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kel. Thanks for having me. And to everyone that's watched or will be watching as well, just remember, you are not alone and you matter.
100%. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being part of Off the Cuff with Kel. We will be back in a fortnight with Craig Hughes Cashmore from Samson. So he will be on live with us. But guys, you've just heard an incredible story from Lizzie. She's got some great tips in there. So please make sure you share. And again, thank you so much for being part of our audience tonight. So we'll see you and hear from you again soon. All right. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks, Kel.